Does George Pickens have Dez Bryant potential? The Cowboys acquired a playmaker they've long lacked in their wide receiving core, with last week's trade for George Pickens. It didn't take the club's chief operating officer, Stephen Jones, very long to make a comparison to a Cowboys legend when describing why they traded for Pickens. Well, first of all, we look at him. It's just two starting receivers out there. We don't necessarily even think. We think of him as more than a two when we were looking at the deal, Jones said, on an appearance on Sirius XM's Mad Dog Sports Radio. Certainly, we considered the draft from the standpoint of scratching an itch, looking at what could be there in the draft. But here, you get a guy who's experienced, who's had a lot of success in the NFL, clearly a great competitor. He reminds a lot of people in our building of Dez Bryant as far as his competitiveness and what he brings to the field, his edge. And, as I indicated, we were considering the draft as a means to look at meeting that need. When it didn't materialize, we did have some possibilities in the league that we were considering, and this one, at the end of the day, was the one that made the most sense. Whether it was Coach Brian Schottenheimer and his offensive staff considering him, whether Vice President of Player Personnel Will McClay and the personnel group, obviously Jerry and myself, felt like this was the best move for us, and certainly one that made a lot of sense to us. Dallas struck when they did, to bring in a receiver, letting a pretty underwhelming draft class at the position pass. Before picking up the Steelers and trading for a player the Steelers appeared ready to move on from, as they made their own deal for DK Metcalf, a former Seahawks receiver, earlier this offseason. Rather than relying on the best with a first-year receiver, the Cowboys brought in Pickens, a highlight reel filler of a receiver who is supremely talented but has also developed a reputation as being mercurial. The Cowboys are willing to take any risk with Pickens due to the potential. If it ultimately results in Pickens having a Bryant-like season, 75 to 90 receptions, 1,200-plus receiving yards, double-digit touchdowns, it will be a blessing for Dallas, and potentially get them to work on a long-term contract with Pickens as one half of a dynamic receiving core with CeeDee Lamb. Those are lofty figures Pickens has flirted with, but only once, in 2023. The Cowboys, however, are pursuing the potential in Pickens on the assumption that he's lacked only an elite passer, Dak Prescott, and a fine running partner, Lamb, to reach his potential. They'll test that in 2025.